The night sky above the Atlantic shimmered with 1,000 scattered stars. Flight 732, bound from London to Dubai, cruised steadily at 35,000 feet, its engines humming like a soft lullaby through the still air. Inside the cabin, most passengers had settled into sleep, the kind of deep, dreamless rest that only long flights could bring. In row 9, seat A, sat Emma Lewis, a quiet 14-year-old girl with auburn hair tied into a loose ponytail. Her window framed the endless darkness of the sky, occasionally lit by the silver wingtip lights flashing outside. Emma wasn't asleep. Instead, she was sketching, the way she always did when the world felt too loud or too uncertain. On her tablet screen, a fluffy formation of clouds was taking shape beneath her stylus. She loved drawing clouds. Her father had once told her that every cloud had a name and a story, that some drifted alone while others carried storms. Her father. The thought made her pause. It had been 2 years since he'd passed away in an Air Force crash. At least that's what she had been told. She still remembered his laugh, the smell of jet fuel on his jacket, and the call sign he used to whisper when she helped him with flight simulations. Echo 9, my co-pilot. She smiled faintly at the memory, not knowing how soon that name would return. The cabin lights dimmed to a soft amber glow. Flight attendants moved quietly down the aisles, checking seatbelts, whispering to passengers still awake. A soft chime echoed overhead. Then, the captain's voice came through the intercom. Calm, reassuring, almost too calm. Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking. We're experiencing a minor technical issue, but everything is under control. Please remain seated with your seatbelts fastened. A few passengers stirred, but most didn't even look up. Emma, however, sensed something strange, a tremor in the captain's tone. 5 minutes later, the calm was shattered. The aircraft jolted violently, sending half-empty coffee cups crashing to the floor. Gasps filled the cabin as oxygen masks rattled slightly in their compartments. A baby began to cry somewhere behind her. The overhead lights flickered once, twice, and then everything went dark. For a heartbeat, silence. Then, the deep, metallic groan of the aircraft struggling against turbulence. Emma's hand clutched the armrest. Her tablet slid to the floor, the sketch of clouds vanishing into black. Outside the window, she could barely make out the faint glow of lightning rippling through a distant storm front. "Mom?" Someone whispered behind her. "What's happening?" The seatbelt light blinked urgently. A flight attendant hurried past, her calm mask cracking just enough for Emma to see the fear in her eyes. Then, the hum of the engines faltered. A sound so subtle yet terrifyingly unnatural. Emma pressed her forehead against the cold window and whispered into the dark. "Dad." "What do I do?" Far above the clouds, row 9 was no longer just another seat on a passenger jet. It was where a frightened girl would soon discover that her father's voice, and his legacy, still echoed in the skies. The cockpit of Flight 732 had turned into a chaos of warning tones and flashing red indicators. Captain Ethan Reed, a veteran pilot with over 2 decades in the sky, gripped the controls as the aircraft lurched violently. A string of alarms blared, hydraulic pressure dropping, oxygen levels fluctuating, navigation going erratic. He'd seen turbulence before, but this was different. Beside him, First Officer Mason slumped forward, unconscious. The oxygen mask dangled uselessly at his side. Hypoxia, sudden and brutal. Reed tried to shake him, but there was no response. He was alone in a crippled aircraft, thousands of feet above the ocean. "Mayday. This is Flight 732. Engine control malfunction, possible decompression." Reed's voice cracked as static filled the comms. He slammed the transmitter again, but the signal was fading in and out. Inside the cabin, passengers screamed as another jolt rocked the plane. Trays flew open, masks dropped, and the hum of panic spread like wildfire. Then something shifted in the captain's eyes, a memory flashing through the storm. A call sign, something he hadn't said in years. He reached for the cabin intercom, his voice cutting through the noise, low but commanding. "Echo 9. This is Falcon 1. I need your eyes up front. Now." The words hung in the air, slicing through the chaos like a signal from another world. For a few seconds, No one moved. Passengers exchanged nervous glances, trying to understand who Echo 9 was. Some assumed it was a code for the crew. Others thought it was a distress term. But in row 9, Emma Lewis froze. Her pulse hammered in her ears. That name. Echo 9. She hadn't heard it since her father, Captain Aaron Lewis, used it during their late-night simulator games in his home study. Echo 9, adjust the flaps. Echo 9, watch your altitude. Good girl. Perfect approach. It was their secret. No one else in the world had ever called her that. Her breathing quickened. Could it be a coincidence? No. No one could possibly know. The pilot's voice had a deep, steady tone, but there was something in it. A faint warmth. The kind she remembered from her father's radio calls. Emma pressed her trembling hand against the armrest, her mind racing. Her father was gone. The Air Force report said mechanical failure. She had stood at his memorial, listened to his squadron honor him. He was gone, but now, someone up front had just used the exact code name he'd given her on this flight. A flight attendant passed by, visibly shaken, whispering hurried instructions into her earpiece. Emma stood up, clutching the seat in front of her. "Sit down, miss," the attendant said sharply. Emma hesitated, but then came the voice again, firmer this time, unmistakably directed at her. "Echo 9, if you can hear me, I need your help." Her stomach turned cold. Passengers were still panicking, but Emma's world narrowed to that voice. Somehow, impossibly, it was reaching out to her, through the storm, through fear, through time itself. Could it really be him? Or was destiny calling her by the name only a father and daughter once shared in secret skies? She didn't know the answer, but she knew one thing. Whoever Falcon 1 was, he needed Echo 9 now, and Echo 9 was her. The cabin was chaos, oxygen masks dangling, passengers crying, flight attendants shouting over the roar of the engines. The jet trembled again, a deep metallic groan echoing through the fuselage like the sound of a beast in pain. In row 9, Emma's heart pounded against her ribs. Her ears still rang with the captain's voice. "Echo 9, I need your eyes up front. Now." It wasn't just a coincidence anymore. She could feel it. That strange pull, the invisible thread connecting her to the cockpit. Her legs trembled, but something inside her, something her father had built, told her to move. She unbuckled her seatbelt, ignoring the flight attendant's panicked shout. "Miss, sit down! We're in turbulence!" Emma shook her head, eyes wide but determined. "I think the captain needs me," she whispered. Before the attendant could react, the intercom crackled again. "Let her through!" Every head turned. The order silenced the aisle. The attendant hesitated, then stepped aside, confusion and fear flickering across her face. Emma's sneakers pounded against the floor as she ran toward the front. The entire plane tilted slightly, sending a cart rolling backward. Someone screamed. She caught the edge of a seat, her heart thundering, and kept going. When she reached the cockpit door, a flight officer unlocked it with trembling fingers. The door hissed open. Inside was another world. Red lights, warning tones, the hiss of oxygen flow, and a dim glow from malfunctioning screens. The air smelled like metal and ozone. Emma froze. Captain Ethan Reed sat in the pilot's seat, one hand gripping the yoke, the other steadying the throttle. His oxygen mask hid most of his face, but through the fogged visor, his eyes were sharp and tired. "Echo 9, he said, his voice muffled but urgent. "Your dad trained you on simulator drills. I need you to help me reroute manual hydraulics. Now!" Emma's breath caught in her throat. "My dad?" she whispered. Reed didn't look up. "Aaron Lewis. He worked with me in the Air Force. He told me about you, about your drills. I never thought I'd need them for real." The world blurred for a second. Her father, the man she thought was gone, his name, here, spoken in a storm of alarms. Tears welled in her eyes, but she wiped them away. There was no time. She took a deep breath and stepped forward. The cockpit vibrated under her feet. Warning lights blinked across the overhead panel like red fireflies. "Find the auxiliary hydraulics," Reed said, his voice tight with strain. Manual override switch, lower left. Emma's eyes scanned the panel. She remembered it, not from reality, but from the old simulator at home. Her dad had once said, "If the hydraulics ever fail, Echo 9, you find the backup line. That's how you bring her home." Her small fingers moved with shaking precision. She flipped one switch, then another. The lights blinked. "Good," Reed said. "Now pull lever 3 to neutral, and hold." She did. The aircraft gave a low shudder, and then began to stabilize. Outside, the clouds parted just enough to reveal a sliver of moonlight. For the first time in what felt like hours, the controls began to respond. Captain Reed exhaled in disbelief. "You did it, kid." Emma didn't speak. Her hands trembled, her pulse racing. But her father's voice echoed in her mind, calm and proud. "That's my co-pilot, Echo 9. The night had stretched into eternity, a blur of alarms, shaking wings, and whispered prayers. But now at last, a faint golden line shimmered on the horizon. Dawn. From the cockpit of Flight 732, the world below began to glow. Endless sand dunes catching the first rays of sunlight as the aircraft descended toward Dubai International Airport. The storm had cleared, but the damage remained. Several systems offline, one engine stuttering, and the co-pilot still unconscious. And through it all, sitting beside Captain Reed was Emma Lewis, the 14-year-old girl from row 9, headset too large for her, hands trembling over the auxiliary controls, her eyes red from tears and focus. "Altitude 2500, Reed said, his voice steady but hoarse. "Flaps 20 degrees, Emma nodded, swallowing hard. "Flaps 20. Her voice cracked as she reached for the lever. He glanced at her, this kid who had just rerouted the hydraulics of a failing passenger jet. And for a brief moment, he saw something of her father in her courage. The radio crackled with the control tower's voice. "Flight 732, you are cleared for emergency landing. Runway 30 left. Fire and medical teams are standing by." Reed replied, "Roger that. We're coming home." The engines groaned as the aircraft lowered its nose. Through the cockpit window, the first streaks of dawn glistened across the desert. The city lights below blurred through thin clouds, golden and white, like constellations fallen to earth. "Speed 250, Reed muttered. "Speed 250, Emma echoed. She didn't realize she was crying until a tear rolled down her cheek, dripping onto her trembling hands. She thought of her father, the way he used to rest his hand over hers on the simulator controls and say, "A good pilot doesn't fight the sky." Echo 9. She listens to it, so she listened. The hum of the engines, the rush of the wind, the subtle vibrations through the yoke. Every sound told her something, and she responded instinctively. At 1,000 feet, the runway came into clear view, 2 long lines of light stretching out like a promise. Reed's voice was calm. "You've got the readings?" Emma nodded. "Stable descent. Landing gear locked." He smiled faintly behind his oxygen mask. "Good girl." As the wheels touched the runway, the plane jolted hard, then steadied. Reverse thrusters roared, the cabin filled with gasps and cries, then silence. And finally, applause, a wave of it, raw and relieved. Passengers hugging, crying, clapping through tears. Emma just stared out the window, the rising sun painting the world in orange and gold. Her reflection looked back at her, older, stronger, no longer just a kid in row 9. Captain Reed stood, removed his headset, and knelt beside her seat after the landing. His voice, gentle now, broke the silence. "Your father saved lives through you today, Echo 9. Her throat tightened. She wanted to speak, but no words came. Only a soft, trembling smile. As the sun rose higher, its light spilled across the aircraft's wings, wings her father once dreamed of, and she had now helped guide home. For the first time, Emma felt it deep within her heart. Her dad's voice wasn't gone. It had only changed form, carried forever in the wind, in the hum of engines, in the quiet courage that would never leave her. Because now, wherever she flew, she knew one truth that would stay with her always. Her father's spirit still soared with her, in every sky.